Hello, this is Terry from Fabric Junction in Sturgis, South Dakota. Today I'm going to show you how to put together a table runner called Tulip Ladyfingers. The block itself is actually the Tulip Ladyfingers, and then we created it into a lovely table runner. On our website, you can download the free pattern that has all your yardages and your cutting instructions. So as you can see, I've actually started with my points. And with any block, you break it out into sections. And this one here has 9 sections, so it's based on a 9 patch. And we're going to do the corner block. To do that, you'll take your 2 squares that you have, and the lighter one, I mark a 1/4 inch seam right down the middle. I use my Fonson Porter 1/4 inch seam marker. I follow the dark line. I line it up. Some people like to line it up on the edge, but you'll see I like to line mine up using the seam on point to point, and then that way I can hold it like this on a smaller square, and I pencil line both sides. That will be my stitch line. So now I'm going to match it up with the other square and sew. Now when I did these originally, I did them all at once, so I had a huge line of these that I did. And when I got down to the last one, I took it and just gave it a turn and went through the rest of the stack. So once you have sewn on both lines, cut it in half. You can use your rotary if you prefer. And now we need to press. And again, on this one, I press to the dark. We have dog ears, so I want to get rid of those. And then I line up the block exactly the way I'm going to sew it. And I did sew mine in pairs, just like you see here. That way when they came off the machine, I knew these were the 2 that I need to sew together. They're hooked by a little string. I fold it over, I match the seam, and as you can see, the seams want to jump up, and then I just roll them over to the less bulky. And now I press. I place it where it belongs. I double check that I have my pieces all the direction I want them, and now I sew. And I start with the center one and I fold it over to the left. And now I'll do my next row, and again Start at the top of my row and I fold it to the left. Now I have my block sewn in rows, and I can open it up and double check that I didn't accidentally turn one. So now I'll sew the other direction, and then I'll have my block done. And I line up again where that seam allowance is, and then I just fold to what is the less bulky. And one of the things I do, as you notice, I line up my seams as I go. That way I know I can get different parts to match up. And sometimes you have to use the bottom end or the top. Once you have it all sewn together, then you press. Now we're going to lay out all of our parts, and once again I've started ahead and laid out my sections. And when I laid this out, I know my block was going to be on point, so I laid out all my blocks so that they were just touching each other. And then I came and set in the triangles. So then when I sew, I'm actually sewing at a diagonal from the way I'm viewing it. And I always sew starting on the square corner versus the triangle corner, because it's easier to line up this, and you'll see from here that it extends. Well, that's your seam allowance, so that is correct. So line up starting with the top and do your 1/4 inch seam. Here I press, lay it back to make sure that I'm in the right angle. Now the one I want to match up is right there. So what I do on this is I match that up. If it gets bulky to hang on to, go ahead and pin it. But then I kind of lay out my block to see that I've got a nice tip. And that one has quite a bit, and I know it should look about like that. So I grab it to where it should be, put it into the sewing machine, and just keep lining it up. And then when I get to where my seam that needs to match, I make sure I'm still matching. And as you can see, I've got a nice little tail there, and like I said, that's okay, because that is my seam allowance. So once you have that sewn, and you'll do all your sections that way, go ahead and press. And now you have kind of a few little dog ears. Well, you can get rid of those. You don't need them. Those up there I don't worry about because those will be taken care of once we start adding the borders. But these here, you just kind of trim those little guys away. And now we're going to add your border. And as you can see, here's a sneak peek of how we add our border. You'll have a couple of your smaller pieces that you cut. And what I want you to do, in this case, I'm going to cut that little selvage off. The first one, line up on the corner, and it's a lot longer than what you need. So it gives you plenty of room, but line up on the corner, do your seam allowance, your 1/4 inch seam allowance. And sew all the way across and a little beyond. Take it off and then press this one. And you'll actually press so that it is all up in the seam. Okay, now we need to do the other side, and once again we're going to line up on the square and we're going to sew all the way through. And again, I'm going to press it. And now we need to cut. And what you do is find your 45-degree line on your ruler. And that line needs to line up right here where you stitched, so that you have a straight going this way, lined up where you stitched, and this is what we're going to cut. Because we want this to line up with the rest of our runner. Now sometimes when you go to line up, you may have to flip your ruler over, because if I line it up where I'm looking at it, that's not going to do it. Mine happens to have 2 on it. Some, not all rulers do. Line it up. You want to be lined up straight here, and you want to be lined up straight across here. So sometimes you just need to get things to match as close as you can and cut. Now that we have our ends, we need to do our sides. So you take your piece, and this time you'll go above and beyond. You've got plenty of length, so extend it plenty, and we'll sew. we're going to put the other one on at the same time, because it doesn't, we're not going to cross over it, so we don't need to run and press. We can press them both at the same time. So again, extend it, start, and sew. Okay, we have both side borders on. Now we need to press them. Okay, we have it pressed, and again we need to cut because we want that to come at that angle. So we find our 45 degree and we line it up. Try to figure out which way we need to. Actually, there we go. We can line it up. We can line up this way and cut, but just to be on the safe side, I always like to have two lines, or try to have two lines, and it'll keep this line a little bit straighter. So we do it to both sides. Oh, I gotta get it turned around so I can find my 45 degree. There we go. So we do it all the way around. Now we'll start on our outer border. And the outer border is the same thing. Again, we line up and sew. Then we press. Okay. Get it to press open. And we add our other corner. Line it at the top again. And sew. I'm going to cut this one more time, and then I'm going to stop here because the rest of the border is put on exactly like I showed you on the first one. So you're just repeating all the same steps of finding your 45 degree, lining it up so that you're going to cut it straight with the edge. When you go to put your long sides on, just like we did on the inner border, you'll extend clear over the top and you'll stitch. And when you're done, you'll end up with a runner that looks just like this. Now, to bind this, I'll refer you to our video online that shows you how to bind. But there's one little thing I need to show you on this one. That one will show you how to do this corner here. But this is not a full 45 degree corner. So I left this one open here so that you can kind of see that when I added this binding, my fold was more like a little pleat. There's almost nothing right here, just very, very little. And I did a little bitty fold. And it will look like this. This part is over here, here's this here. That is normal. So when you do fold it over and you go to sew it, you'll just have a little bitty fold right there. So don't let that scare you, that you can't get the full deep fold that we can on a 45. That is normal when you're doing a much wider corner. Hope you enjoyed our video. Do check out our website, junctionfabric.com. Like I said, the pattern for the cutting and the yardages are all posted there under free patterns. Thank you for watching.